Mark Trovio was charismatic. He was magnetic. His presence commanded attention and his words captivated hearts. He founded the Church of God's Grace. It began small, just a handful of devoted followers in a modest room, a gathering of lost souls, seeking solace, craving guidance. Trovio offered them answers. He promised salvation. He provided a sense of direction in a world that often felt chaotic and unforgiving. He spoke with fire and brimstone. His words resonated deeply within the hearts of his listeners. His sermons were powerful, filled with passion and conviction. He preached a new path to God, a path that was unique, one that only he could reveal. His vision was clear, and his followers believed in it wholeheartedly. The congregation grew rapidly. From a small group, it expanded into a large, devoted following. People from all walks of life were drawn to his message. People were drawn to his certainty. He offered them belonging. He gave them purpose. In a world full of uncertainty, Trovio's unwavering confidence was a beacon of hope. But this solace came at a price that was not always monetary, but often personal and emotional. A price many were too blind to see. They were unaware of the hidden costs, the sacrifices they would have to make in their quest for salvation. Trovio's teachings were unorthodox. He warped scripture, twisted verses to fit his narrative. He claimed divine revelation, said God spoke directly to him. Traditional Christian teachings were dismissed, deemed corrupted. Only Trovio held the true interpretation. Doubt was forbidden. Questioning was sin. His followers clung to his every word. They surrendered their judgment. Their critical thinking eroded. Blind faith became their only compass. Trovio was a master manipulator. He had an uncanny ability to read people, to understand their deepest desires and fears. His presence was magnetic, drawing people in like moths to a flame. He exuded warmth and charisma. His smile could light up a room, and his words were like honey, sweet and soothing. People were naturally drawn to him, captivated by his charm and the promise of something greater. He was a beacon of hope. In a world full of uncertainty and chaos, Trovio offered a sense of direction and purpose. His followers saw him as a guiding light, someone who could lead them to a better future. He listened to their troubles, offered comfort and solutions. His empathy seemed boundless, and his advice was always tailored to the individual's needs. He made each person feel special, as if they were the most important person in the world. He created a familial atmosphere, a sense of community. His followers felt seen, they felt loved. In Trovio's presence, they found a family they never had, a place where they belonged and were valued. They were willing to do anything for him. He was their shepherd. They were his flock. He cultivated dependence. Every action, every thought revolved around pleasing him and gaining his approval. Isolated them from the outside world. Their world shrank. Trovio became their everything. He controlled their environment, their interactions, and ultimately, their reality. In their eyes, he was not just a leader, but a savior. Section 4, Behind the Veil of Piety. Behind closed doors, Trovio was a different man. The mask of piety slipped. He was controlling. He was ruthless. He demanded absolute obedience. Dissent was met with swift punishment, public humiliation, shunning. He instilled fear. He broke their spirits, maintained control. He drained their finances, demanded tithes, contributions, donations. He amassed wealth, lived in luxury. His followers struggled, made sacrifices, believed it was for God's work. Section 5, Scars of Faith. Years passed, the control tightened, Trovio's teachings became more bizarre, more extreme. His followers were isolated, indoctrinated, trapped. Families were torn apart, friendships shattered, careers abandoned, lives were ruined, all in the name of God's grace. Some began to question, to doubt, to see through the facade, but it was too late. They had given everything, their minds, their hearts, their souls. Section 6. The Fall from Grace. The truth eventually emerged. Whistleblowers came forward, risking everything to reveal the hidden truths. Former members, once loyal, spoke out about the dark secrets. The media pounced, uncovering layers of deceit. The law took notice, launching thorough investigations. Trovio's empire, once seemingly unbreakable, crumbled under the weight of his lies. His manipulation, once so effective, was laid bare for all to see. The Church of God's Grace collapsed, leaving behind a trail of shattered lives and broken families. The community, once united under a common belief, was now divided and in turmoil. The emotional and psychological damage was profound, and a legacy of pain lingered. Trovio's reign was over, but the impact of his actions continued to haunt those who had once followed him. The scars he inflicted ran deep, affecting generations. People sought therapy, trying to make sense of the betrayal and rebuild their lives. It served as a stark reminder of the dangers of blind faith and the vulnerability of those seeking solace in religion, and the seductive power of a charismatic leader whose influence can lead many astray. The story of Trovio is a cautionary tale, urging vigilance and critical thinking in the face of persuasive authority. The 1980s, California. A chill settled over the Golden State. Fear whispered on the wind. The Nightwalker stalked the night. He came in the darkness, a phantom preying on the unsuspecting. Men and women alike became his victims. No one was safe. His calling card? Brutal efficiency. He was in and out, leaving no trace. Just a trail of terror in his wake. The police were baffled. Who was this monster? And how could he disappear into thin air? His first victim, a young woman named Sarah, lived alone in a small apartment. She was a quiet, reserved individual who kept to herself, making her an easy target for the Nightwalker. The Nightwalker entered silently, his presence unknown until it was too late. He moved with a chilling precision, leaving no trace of his entry. Her death, a brutal stabbing, sent shockwaves through the community. The sheer violence of the act left everyone in a state of disbelief and horror. Then came John, a night watchman making his rounds. He was diligent and always on alert, but even his vigilance couldn't save him. He never saw the Nightwalker coming. The attack was swift and merciless, leaving John no chance to defend himself. The brutality of his murder shocked even seasoned detectives. They had seen many things, but this level of savagery was unprecedented. As the body count rose, so did the fear. Each new victim added to the growing sense of dread that gripped the community. People were afraid to be alone at night. The once bustling streets became deserted as darkness fell, everyone fearing they might be next. The Nightwalker had become a nightmare made flesh. The media frenzy began, with every news outlet covering the story extensively. Newspapers ran headlines screaming of the killer in their midst. The fear was palpable, and the community was on edge. The Nightwalker had become a household name, a symbol of terror. His reign of fear seemed unstoppable, leaving everyone wondering who would be next. The police worked tirelessly, following every lead. They interviewed witnesses, combed crime scenes, and chased down every tip. But the Nightwalker was always one step ahead. He was a master of disguise. Some witnesses described a tall, imposing figure. Others swore he was short and stocky. His ability to blend in was chilling. He left no fingerprints, no DNA, no trace. It was as if he were a ghost, drifting through the night, leaving only death behind. Frustration mounted. The police were no closer to catching him. The Nightwalker had become a phantom, a whisper of fear in the darkness. Section 4, Coast to Coast Terror, the Nightwalker's Migration. A journey that left a trail of fear and mystery across the nation. Then, just as suddenly as they had begun, the killing stopped. The Nightwalker vanished without a trace, leaving authorities baffled. Some breathed a sigh of relief, hoping he was gone for good, believing the nightmare had finally ended. But their relief was short-lived, as a sense of unease lingered in the air. Months later, A chilling pattern emerged, one that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned detectives. Similar murders, bearing the unmistakable hallmarks of the Nightwalker, began surfacing in different cities. This time, on the other side of the country, far from where the terror had originally begun. He had moved east, his reign of terror resuming in unsuspecting cities, catching everyone off guard. His victims once again chosen at random, adding to the unpredictability and fear. Men and women, young and old, no one was safe from his grasp. The news spread like wildfire, igniting panic and dread across the nation. The Nightwalker was back, and his return was more terrifying than ever. And he was more elusive than ever, slipping through the cracks and evading capture at every turn. Section 5. The Unsolved Mystery, a Haunting Legacy. Decades have passed. The Nightwalker's reign of terror remains a dark stain on America's history. He is a ghost story, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones. His victims' families still search for answers. The police, though officially retired from the case, haven't given up hope of closing this dark chapter. The Nightwalker's ability to evade justice is a chilling reminder. Some monsters, it seems, walk among us, hidden in plain sight. The question remains, will he ever be caught? Or will the Nightwalker forever haunt our collective nightmares? Section 6. Conclusion. In the Shadow of the Nightwalker. Today, the legend of the Nightwalker serves as a chilling reminder of the unknown dangers that can lurk in the shadows. Evil can lurk where we least expect it, hiding in the corners of our everyday lives, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And some mysteries may never be solved, leaving us with more questions than answers, and a lingering sense of unease. His story is a testament to the darkness that can reside in the human heart, a darkness that can manifest in the most unexpected ways. It is a stark reminder that even in the safety of our homes, we are vulnerable to the unseen threats that may be lurking just outside. The next time you walk alone at night, listen closely to the sounds around you. You might just hear the echo of footsteps, a haunting reminder that you are never truly alone. The footsteps of the Nightwalker, forever stalking the shadows. He could be anywhere. He could be anyone, blending into the darkness. And that is the most terrifying thought of all. The idea that the Nightwalker could be closer than you think, watching and waiting. The California sun, usually so warm and inviting, felt different in San Bernardino. A chill settled over the city. It started with whispers, rumors of a darkness, a malevolence lurking in the shadows. They called him the Devil. No one knew his real name then, but everyone knew the fear he instilled. He moved like a phantom, striking quickly and disappearing into the night. His victims, seemingly chosen at random, shared a horrifying connection. Bizarre symbols carved into their flesh, their bodies left posed in grotesque rituals. The police were baffled, the press in a frenzy, and the people? They were paralyzed by dread. The fear was palpable. You could feel it in the air, thick and heavy. Parents wouldn't let their children out after dark. Neighbors watched each other with suspicion, the very fabric of their sunny California life torn apart by the specter of the Devil. The Devil, they soon discovered, was no mere figment of a city's collective nightmare. He was a shadow lurking in the corners of their reality, a presence felt but rarely seen. He was real. His name, as it turned out, was Martin Mosley, a name that would soon be etched into the annals of the city's darkest history. And he was a monster cloaked in seemingly ordinary flesh, a man who could blend into the crowd, yet carried an aura of malevolence. But behind the facade of a quiet neighbor, a darkness festered. His home, a seemingly normal suburban house, was a gateway to horrors unimaginable. Mosley was obsessed with the occult. His fascination with the dark arts consumed him, driving him to the brink of madness. Ancient texts on demonology and ritual sacrifice littered his dingy apartment, each book a testament to his descent into darkness. He believed he was a conduit, an instrument of a malevolent force far greater than himself, a force that whispered promises of power and immortality. His killings weren't just acts of violence, they were meticulously staged ceremonies. Each ritual, a step closer to his ultimate goal. Each symbol carved, each drop of blood spilled, held a terrifying significance in his twisted mind. They were keys to unlocking the gates of hell. The victims weren't just people to Mosley. They were pawns in his grand design, mere tools to achieve his dark ambitions. They were offerings, sacrifices to appease whatever dark entity he believed he served. Their lives, a currency for his unholy transactions. Their terror, their pain, it fueled his madness, brought him closer, he believed, to some unholy communion. A communion that promised him power beyond mortal comprehension. With each gruesome act, the line between Mosley and the monster he worshipped blurred. He was losing himself, becoming one with the darkness. He was becoming the very demon he sought to appease, a transformation that was as horrifying as it was inevitable. It began on a sweltering July night, the kind of night where the air feels thick and oppressive. The air was thick with humidity, making it hard to breathe, and there was a growing sense of unease that seemed to permeate the very atmosphere. The first victim was a young woman, barely out of her teens, walking alone under the moonlit sky, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. She was found in a secluded park, her body arranged in a macabre tableau that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned detectives. Her eyes, wide with terror, stared vacantly at the night sky, as if frozen in the moment of her last breath. And on her chest, a single, crudely carved symbol, a mark that would become infamous in the days to come. The police tried to keep the details under wraps, hoping to prevent a public panic. But fear, like wildfire, spreads quickly. The news of the gruesome murder spread, and then another victim was found. This time it was a middle-aged businessman, discovered in his own home. His body was mutilated, the same symbol carved into his flesh. Panic gripped San Bernardino. This wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a pattern, a ritualistic killing that hinted at something far more sinister. The city held its breath, the tension palpable in the air. People began looking over their shoulders in fear, bracing for the next strike, knowing with chilling certainty that it was only a matter of time before the killer struck again. The police worked tirelessly, burning the midnight oil, desperate to find the killer before he claimed another victim. But Mosley, the name whispered in fear, was always one step ahead, vanishing into thin air after each horrific act, leaving no trace behind. The city, meanwhile, descended further into a state of paranoia and fear, the once vibrant streets now eerily quiet. It felt as though the devil himself was holding them all hostage, casting a dark, ominous shadow over the city. Time seemed to slow down, each tick of the clock echoing the collective heartbeat of a city gripped by terror. Sketch artists worked tirelessly, trying to piece together a face from the scant descriptions, while detectives shared notes, hoping for a breakthrough. The community held candlelight vigils, hoping to find solace and strength in unity, but the fear was ever present, lurking in the shadows. As dawn broke, the city hoped for a new day, a day without fear, but the shadow of the reign of terror loomed large, a constant reminder of the darkness that had taken hold. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The body count rose, each new victim adding to the growing sense of dread that gripped the city. Each murder more gruesome, more brazen than the last. The brutality was escalating, leaving the community in a state of perpetual fear. The press, hungry for a story, dubbed him the Butcher of San Bernardino. Headlines screamed of his latest atrocities, feeding the public's morbid curiosity. The nickname, though sensationalized, held a chilling truth. It encapsulated the horror that Mosley brought with each act of violence. Mosley didn't just kill, he butchered. His methods were not just about ending lives, but about inflicting maximum pain and suffering. His weapons weren't guns or knives, but crude makeshift tools, items that seemed innocuous until they were turned into instruments of torture, found objects turned instruments of torture. Each tool was a testament to his twisted ingenuity and sadistic pleasure. He reveled in the pain he inflicted, the terror he instilled. The fear in his victims' eyes was his reward, their screams his symphony. With each victim, his methods became more depraved, his rituals more elaborate. It was as if he were perfecting his dark art. The symbols carved into their flesh grew more intricate, more sinister. Each mark was a signature of his malevolence. It was as if he were communicating with something ancient and evil, something that demanded these horrific acts as a form of tribute, something that answered back in the screams of his victims. Their agony was a dialogue, a conversation with the darkness. The fear that had once been a whisper now echoed through the streets of San Bernardino. It was a palpable presence, a shadow that loomed over every corner. People were afraid to leave their homes, afraid to venture out into the night where Mosley might be lurking, afraid to answer their doors, fearing that the next knock could be their last. The sense of security they once had was shattered. The city, once a beacon of sunshine and promise, had become a hunting ground for a madman. The transformation was stark and terrifying, had become a hunting ground for a madman. The streets that were once filled with laughter and life were now deserted and silent. And Mosley, the puppet master of this nightmare, remained elusive, a ghost in the shadows, always one step ahead of the authorities, a phantom haunting their waking hours and their darkest dreams. His presence was felt even when he wasn't there, a constant reminder of the terror that gripped the city.